Okay, Tracy, you're all set.
Thank you. Okay, Kyle's here too. So hi, everyone. Welcome to Recreation Advisory Committee for February 18th, 2021. We'll do a quick roll call. I know we won't have Evan tonight, but we should have Anne soon. And so we'll go from there. So Joan?
Here.
Sharon?
Here.
Morgan?
Here.
Brandon?
I'm here.
Carol?
Here.
Kyle?
Here.
Anne?
Here.
Meth? Here. And Alan?
Here.
Great.
Here.
Okay, thanks everyone for being here. We'll start with approval of the minutes for the January 21st meeting. If I have a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from January.
Terrific. And a second.
Second,
Okay, and a quick roll call. Joan?
yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Anne? Oops, Anne's frozen. We'll go back to Anne. Kyle?
Yes.
Brandon?
Sorry, I'm here. Good with it.
We'll approve the minutes. And Anne?
Hi.
Okay, great. So first item on the agenda is the rec director's report. So Alan, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Not a lot obviously going on at this point in time with the facilities closed, and we were able to have our second soccer outdoor session on February 6th. We had our groups play soccer in between a week of snow. We were able to get it in. We are probably looking good for springtime softball and t-ball and other outdoor activities at this point. So I'm anticipating that we'll be setting things up for those activities, which would be probably starting in April. Just want to give a shout out to Joan, who has been helping me with kind of rebuilding, redesigning our newsletter, the recreation newsletter. She's really been helpful in giving me some good ideas and working with me via some phone conversations and Zooms in terms of how to set it up, how to make it a little more attractive to people to open. And that's been going well and helpful, very helpful that she's been there to do that. And if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Joan?
Hi, Alan. Thanks for that. Thank you. Two follow-ups from the last meeting. Can you give us a status of the pickleball courts, and can you let us know if you got to talk to Kyle from the police station, because she was so enthusiastic about getting some programs in place?
The pickleball nets were put up. Don't know the exact date that they were put up, but they were put up on the lower tennis court. I personally have not had a conversation with Riley at this point. I have personally not spoken with her about any upcoming activities because I really don't have any upcoming activities at this point with dates planned.
Can I ask that you maybe give her a call, because she was so enthusiastic, and
Yep.
see what
Well,
she would like to do?
I'll be back in touch. I have not been in the office since Friday, so I haven't connected with her.
Okay.
Alan, are there plans for any other spring programs? I'm thinking last year, I think you had hoped to do a lacrosse. Tennis is usually in the spring. I'm
Tennis-
just,
Yeah, tennis is definitely in the plans. Tennis, in fact, my goal here in my planning is two things, but I certainly not giving out really any specifics because it's sort of still up in the air. Would be the normal tennis instructional program, girls softball and t-ball, but also I am planning on what I will call, I don't have a date, the date in mind, but it's not confirmed, is March 20th, which is Welcome to Spring, which is just a Saturday afternoon to get some people out, assuming the weather's doable, to maybe Eldridge Park and have some small family activities, have some different activities going on. It's still kind of early to commit to what's being planned, but Brandon, what's that sport that we throw? I can't think of the name of this thing. Cornhole. We have a bunch of those just to bring people out. I've talked to the Board of Health about having a small little fire pit out there, just so people can warm their hands and give it a little ambiance to the environment. Also talked to the Board of Health about serving pizza and hot dogs at this event, just have them available. There's really no problem with that. We just have to pull the permits like we normally do. But again, planning it, but I'm not throwing it out to the public yet because I'm not 100% sure of that date or that those activities are what I want to do. The other thing is with the weather obviously changing and hopefully getting better for like April, is to run some type of April vacation programs that would be like I don't want to say a sports camp, because if you call things a sports camp, it changes with the state and the EEA. So more of like April vacation activities that we could do like we did in the fall with maybe a soccer instructional, maybe a running instructional program. What I'm really hoping to do at some point, and I don't know when, is some kids or youth style fitness activities where we do more, not so much sports with teams, but activities that are focused on kids, almost like a PE class, which I have done at the elementary school in the past with, let's say, a 1-day afternoon per week. We called it ball skills, and we had a group of the second graders for an hour after school, or the fourth graders, fifth graders, and we did indoor soccer. We did conditioning with kids. So those are the type of things that I would be thinking of doing in the springtime this year.
That sounds really good. I would, I think it would be really great if and I'm coming from the perspective of, dealing with kids, but kids have been so cooped up, and the middle school was able to do some intramural basketball. I have one at the middle school, but one at the charter. So charter couldn't do basketball.
Yeah.
And I noticed the difference in which child was easier to handle because one was exhausted at the end of the day. And I would encourage, I know there was a dad of a third grader at the elementary school who talked to Mike Rodone and Brewster about doing outdoor basketball. And so he got together a small group. So just calling on volunteers and just giving kids lots of things to get out for on the weekends. I think the warmer weather coinciding with hopefully more people getting vaccines could be a really great opportunity for neighbors to get out, seeing people and doing things and having things on the calendar. So it sounds like that's the direction you're moving in. So I would just encourage, a full calendar of ways to move and see friends and see faces, masked or, even if they're masked, it still
Oh,
counts.
well, there more likely will be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see that.
Yes, but you
even
know
though
what I'm
some-
saying,
Yeah,
we'll take what
yeah.
we can get, but just
Yeah.
that time,
Yeah.
that can really make a difference for families in town.
Well, I will then kind of use this opportunity, if you will, in terms of some other things I'd like to just say.
Mhm.
And that is, kind of leading into my discussions with Joan on developing a newsletter that is, it's time for that to move to a higher level, which Joan is a lot more experienced than I am in that. And that's going to help in terms of having it available and out more on a regular basis. I'm really hoping at some point that, the committee members can help me with things. For instance, at Family Day at Eldridge Park, if I was to organize something like that, I can't imagine me running cornhole, or giving out hot dogs and welcoming people all at the same time. So these activities that I'm doing are what I feel is what my job is. That's what I'm hired to do. But the struggles, and I've said this a million times, so I really I'm saying it for the 1,000,001th time, is the amount of staff or the amount of people that can help. The only way this is going to build, and I think the level we probably all want it to, is more people on the staff or what have you, or more staff, similar to the other towns. If that's not going to happen, which I'm assuming it's not, I'm going to need help to make things work to the degree where people can say, hey, this is really, we're getting bigger, we're growing, we're getting more and more people seeing a quote newsletter, and they're showing up for activities. For instance, people who play basketball, and that's what you're going to get on a sign up or a soccer program. But if you do a family day and the families come down for an hour, bring their kids, meet other families, those types of things, I mean, as much as I want to do them, I can't do them alone. So I'm going to need to see some people on the committee help me with activities. And that's just a quick, comment on what I have wanted to do, but am not able to do to some degree with just myself.
Thank you. Morgan, and then I think Sharon.
I think that's also a great opportunity to get Riley involved in something like that, and maybe a few other police officers would want to support. I think that I get that sense that they might like to support programming like that. And I would also be happy to help you, Alan, connecting with some high school kids. I know Brandon's got one, and I have one, and actually Joey and Elliot and Will be high schoolers soon. Right on this committee, we have a handful of kids about to enter high school that will be connected to clubs and organizations, and and sports teams. So, getting a whole sports team out to support you and endeavors like that could probably easily happen. And I'm happy to connect you with folks that can do that.
Perfect.
Sharon?
Yeah, I was just wondering when we were talking about things for the springtime, and maybe this is something that cannot happen this year, but if we could possibly reinstate our Easter egg hunt, because we are the only town that doesn't have one now. And certainly in a COVID type of environment, I could see limiting, the age for that, and that it's Orleans only kids, as opposed to what used to happen where all the kids from all the surrounding towns would come to our hunt as well as their own. But it was just such a wonderful way to get families together, and intergenerational. Grandparents would be there, and it lasts all of maybe 15 minutes. from the time you say go and they all run off to pick the eggs up off the ground. It's a very quick thing. But it was such a wonderful community springtime, get out, fresh air for the first time that, involved parents and kids and, gave people a chance to chat with each other and see each other, coming out from winter and that kind of a thing. I'm pretty sure parents would be very willing to help in terms of hiding the eggs and, the prep work for it used to fall a lot on the previous rec director. And I believe that the eggs were donated where he got them from.
He sent them out somewhere to be filled.
Yeah, they came from like a workshop for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
So they were pre-stuffed with, the candy but that was just something I would love to see us get back to again.
I agree. People still talk about the egg hunt. Every year the egg hunt comes up. So that would be, and again, I think after the winter that everyone's had, it would be nice to just do whatever we can. Okay. Any other questions about? Yes, Joan?
Well, in terms of the egg hunt, Alan, do you think you want to sign up to do that and have one of us help you? Because if it's something that the town wants and you think we could do, I mean, I can contact Tom Daly, I can contact Nate, because I know it was at Seacole Farms the last few years. So if you think that's something that we would like to do, I don't think that seems like a big, and maybe we can ask the person that ran it last time who's still around, correct? So if you're interested, Alan, one of us could volunteer if you think that's something we would want to. Yeah, okay. So would someone like me to, I know nothing about it other than I see it, but.
I can help with that. I was part of the last.
Yeah. Oh, were you?
That last sprint. Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Floor is yours, buddy.
Brandon Bader. We got a guy. We got
Great.
somebody.
Be the guy, sure.
And then Brandon, will you talk to the police department? Because I think
I
that's
think
also
that's
something that.
I think that would be, I think all those things are actually, in all honesty, are my role. To
Okay.
talk to police, talk to school, even getting off of an Easter egg hunt. Things like
Okay.
talking to police, talking to school officials like the superintendent or the principal on use of facilities, council on aging when they open. It would be me dealing with their director. So I think
So Alan,
communication with other departments is my role.
so will you'll talk to Tom about using Seacole Farm again for that?
Yeah, that's
And
not
then
a problem. Yeah,
Okay, and then
that's not a, yeah.
what date would you do this on, the Easter egg
I-
hunt? Is
I'd
it,
have to, I mean, I'll have to get that out. I'm not in a position at this right here to set a date. I mean, we'll look at, I don't even know, honestly, I know it's April something Easter. I
It's
don't know the
early
date,
this
so-
year, I
it's
think.
early.
Oh, is it early?
It's
Yeah.
the
April. First week in
April
April?
4.
Okay.
I was just wondering when it normally was, if it was the week before or
It
the
was
Saturday.
probably either the Saturday, the day before Easter, or the Saturday of the week prior to Easter. That's my guess.
That sounds right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on then to the budget. Everyone received a copy after the last meeting. So I'll throw it out to questions. The budget will be reviewed by the select board next Wednesday. So Meth, do you want to steer this at all?
I'll kind of just tell you what I talked to Tracy about this afternoon after I had a meeting with John Kelly and Kevin this afternoon, and found out that the date that we were talking about for the last few weeks about having the rec committee come in and be part of the budget discussion is actually going to happen on Wednesday, next Wednesday. And I'm sorry to say that part of that request was to see if anybody, and I think Tracy has maybe given this a start, but whether anybody could put together a very short written description of what you all vision the what is going to happen in the recreation department or the recreation area in town over the next year. This isn't a grand vision. This is just what things do you foresee wanting to get accomplished in the next fiscal year, which would be the July 1 to June 30th period. Not getting into any how do you do it or who does it or what, but just what it is that you think you'd like to see happen. And I think it's the question is it's within the confines of the bigger question about the grand vision of the recreation program in town. But I don't think that's not what this is for. This is just something more immediate. And I know Tracy heard that from me this afternoon around 3:00. And she, I think, maybe has started to write something, but the idea would be that maybe at this meeting tonight, you all could have that discussion and see what it is that you might like to have in there. And not that this is going to necessarily be what you get, but it's just sort of the backdrop for a conversation we have on Wednesday night. And you might also want to decide who you want to have attend.
And Wednesday night will also be an opportunity for us to say anything we want to say about the budget, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to try to explain that whole idea, that whole confusion about the fee revenue and where it goes, and because I have tried to learn, I've tried to understand this a couple of times, and the way John Kelly explained it to me today was that the new fees that were approved were intended to grow the recreation program, and that the existing program would continue to be funded as it always had been out of the general fund, and that the fees would be used for new programming. From a financial management point of view, the existing budgeting that's going on for forever, and the way it's been handled in the past before the fees were introduced, continues. And the only thing that's different is there's this account set up to hold those recreation fees. And so from his point of view, all of that money is available to you. It's not, it's not, it isn't something that comes to you on a piece of paper that shows here's what money you have. And I think that's something that needs to get developed. But I guess it would be, you all could start to receive the monthly report that Kathy Doan does on the recreation program, and that might be that would probably be helpful. I don't know that I can answer any questions, but I'll try.
Can I just say a couple of things? I hate to backtrack again to where we were last year at this time, but our committee at that time, what we had recommended, and is in the letter from Kyle to the select board, I believe in around June of 2020, that our intention was that we would continue to have a revolving account, but that we also expected that the town would be investing in the growth of this program, And in the very least, the growth being in that there needs to be things like added hours for the summer program. So we had added that 1 hour. And that first year that we did that, that was paid for completely out of the revolving fund. When the budget was proposed what was shown to us last winter, included those extra hours, okay? You could see that it was up to like 125 or 130 hours, 135 hours for the playground program for the instructors, okay? The current budget is 105 hours for the instructors for the playground program. So the town is not funding the extra hour. Our recommendation was that the town, not the revolving account, and this also was reinforced in our survey. We pulled together all the information and comments that people made about the fees. And there was a very strong feeling that those fees needed to go toward programming, all right? And that meant increasing what was available. So what John Kelly's vision is, I don't think it's the same as what our committee's vision is. And the recommendations that we made, both myself and Kyle wrote letters to the select board last June explaining what we thought was going to happen and what actually did happen, with nobody telling us, with nobody advising us that there had been changes. So there was a real lack of communication there. At least my position still is very much that the town should be at least increasing. And we're talking about a tiny amount of money here. We're not talking about a whole lot. We're talking about like $20,000 is the difference to fund that summer program to support the families in our town. That's not to say that there won't still be fees. Of course, there's still going to be fees and there's still going to be a revolving fund, but there also needs to be an investment in what the town needs in terms of program hours. And that can't just come. The program's not going to grow just from a revolving fund. Let's say that. It'll be status quo. That's the best you're going to get if that's the only way that this ever gets funded. And the actual dollar amount, this 14,216, is actually less than what was expended in 2019. So we're not even funding it to the level that it was in 2019.
Then this is definitely should be one of the discussion items for Wednesday. And I'm not sure that anyone on the select board really understands what's been, what the understandings have been here. And, I still say that there's pretty much universal support to try to, grow the recreation program in town. And how we do it clearly has, there's that clearly hasn't been put in place.
Right.
So
I mean, there are things that if you go item by item over the current, what's being proposed right now, there are things that have been removed, like short life equipment has gone from $2,338 to zero. Well, that's everything that you use in that summer program. That's all your arts and crafts supplies and all those kinds of things that kids interact with. It's gone. It's gone from the budget altogether after how many years? Boom, zero, but an extra $1,000 for the website, which was proposed last year, and then it was cut back to the $2,150. So I don't know what that extra $1,000 is for the website. I mean, it may be very beneficial to us. I just don't know what we're getting for that extra $1,000 that maybe could be spent on the short life equipment instead, So those are the types of questions that I have, just how are people benefiting from this formula of what we're looking at?
yeah, and that's, I think, all those questions are really important for the select board to hear, and but more importantly is rather than trying to figure out what has gone on, what do we do this year for the next budget?
We got lost in the shuffle last year, so you would hope that
Yeah.
this year we could correct what
Yeah.
happened last year.
And I think, am I correct in thinking that last year, what happened too was that the revolving fund, what the town ended up doing was adding or subtracting what we got in the revolving fund from the total that we needed.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so instead of that being an opportunity to grow, it just got us to the bottom line. And on a year, then we hit a pandemic, and the revolving fund is so small that we're dealing with less.
Yeah.
So I think
I
that
think that needs to be clarified too, because
yeah,
that isn't what John Kelly says.
right. And those fees. So now those fees that are coming in aren't helping us grow; they're helping us keep our heads above water.
So,
And that wasn't the intention.
but this is really the whole purpose of getting together
Right.
on Wednesday.
Matt, I have a question.
Joan?
If, I didn't look at the budget in detail, but I can tell you the $1,000 Ellen needs to pay my rec, because my rec charges to do certain things. So, and $1,000 for a website is not a lot, but to take money away from short-term supplies makes no sense. But wouldn't there be money then in the revolving fund? Like, how do we figure out what was cut and then what could be paid for elsewhere if John Kelly thinks there's money? That's what I'm getting confused on.
It's
And I
an
don't have an
additional
answer.
$1,000 on top of what we've paid the last 2 years. So it's been about $2,800 or $2,150 is what it's been for the last 2 years. And this is an additional $1,050 on top of what we are paying. So it's budgeted for $3,200 for the
Okay.
website.
We can
So it's
look
an
at that,
addition.
Sharon, but I guess my bigger question is, how can those things be cut, the day-to-day needs? If there's a revolving fund, why couldn't you use some of that money towards those things that you need?
When I look at the revolving fund, it appears to be in a negative right now. It's a negative $7,000. So because we haven't been charging. Yes, Alan.
Alan?
Then you're not reading it correctly, Sharon. The numbers that are negative,
Yeah.
if there's a line there, and that's not what it means. We are $7,000 in the black in the
Okay.
revolving fund.
Okay, because it says actual year-to-date revenue negative 7,157.
Right, no, I don't have the paperwork in front of
Okay.
me because I'm not at work right now.
Right.
But we are, I would say we're $7,000 or $6,750 in the black in the revolving fund.
And
So
Alan,
Alan, oh, go ahead.
what do you think that money is there for?
It's there for my use. I mean, it's there for it. Like, for example, if I want to buy a piece of equipment, then I can use that money. If I want to hire somebody to teach a yoga class at $35 an hour and charge a registration fee, the registration fee for that program goes into the revolving fund, and the payment for that instructor comes out of the revolving fund. And if I need, let's say for that program, if I need 10 floor mats, then I can use that money to buy floor mats. That was the problem 2+ years ago, when we would roll around into March and literally have only the money to pay for softball umpires and a few other umpires and a few pieces of equipment for that program, when we could all of a sudden decide, well, why don't we run a fitness class or a yoga class, or let's do an extension in soccer, which is what we did this past winter. And the answer was, I can't, because I have literally no money, zero. It wasn't even like I had any money without the revolving fund. So programs weren't just sort of systematically started because there was no money to pay somebody, there was no money to buy equipment. So the revolving fund gives us, if nothing else, it gives us that ability. An example would be back in the fall of 2020, when the middle school decided they were not going to have sports. So recreation came in and said, well, we'll run an after-school soccer program and had 20 kids. We'll run a cross-country program and have 18 kids. And I charged, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was $15 per person. And that gave me the ability to hire people to help run it and to buy equipment that might have been needed.
So if I could just ask, and this is sort of back to Sharon's point, the intention had been that the existing general fund budget would be what was used for your salary and for the normal costs of the program, and the revolving fee money, the revolving account, would go for adding programming. And to some extent, it sounds like that's what it's being used for from your description. I just don't know, how completely that's true.
So the extra hour that we added did not come from the revolving fund. Not this past, but the year before when we had it. That extra hour came out of the revolving fund. It did not come out of the budget.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. So it has been slated in here again that if we need that extra hour, which I think it's very clear that that is what everybody has said that they want, it's only budgeted for 105 hours for the 6 weeks for those instructors instead of 135 hours, which is what we have decided we would offer.
So for the purposes of this preparing for Wednesday, I think that the sort of short description of what you want should include that increase in hours for the summer program, and not necessarily get into how that happens, but the things that you think you wanted to have happen that haven't happened, they should be in there.
Okay.
Well, I could just say this, that the extra hour was in the current year's last summer, but current year's budget. It was in there for that hour. It was there, and I'm not aware that it's been taken out.
It was taken out.
I
You could tell by the dollar
Nope.
amount, how the dollar amount reduced from the proposed salaries. It dropped from what you proposed originally when we all met with Tom Allen, and from what actually ended up being submitted, the
Yeah.
salary hours, you could see that the dollar amount went down. So it was taken out.
But the bigger point isn't the 1 hour; it's the many more hours that were intended for the summer program, right? And so, I guess for trying to give you guidance on how to put this together, that's the kind of shortcoming, or let's say a short, that's the kind of disappointment in what you had thought was going to be an ability to grow the program, and has not worked out that way. So if it's just a matter of clarification and education, that'll be great. If it's not, then it's something that we have to actually talk about in the budget.
Right.
Alan, can I ask, with the revolving fund, are you looking at how are you working when you go to the revolving fund and when you don't? How far ahead are you planning? I'm just wondering how, what sort of checks and balances are you going through with the revolving fund, especially in a year, where we haven't collected very much in fees?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, one of the reasons why the revolving fund is probably at the balance that it is because we haven't had the type of programming that we would normally run. I mean, in this COVID year, there's no rental of space, facilities. There hasn't been the cost for some of the other expenses that we might have incurred if we had not COVID. So, I mean, it's basically what, Meph and I were kind of mentioning in this and that, is that it's there. Income comes in. I mean, you want to keep it in a, like, if I get just a number I'm going to throw, if I get $650 from the revolving fund for youth basketball, which would have been running now if it wasn't for COVID. I mean, that's really their money. That's $650 that should be used for for basketball. Rather than if I was to take an adult fitness class that we run Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. And if I get $300 from that program, essentially it should go to something similar to that rather than take their money and go buy softballs for the girls' softball program. So it's trying to stay within the realm of where it's coming from, where it should be expended. So I'm not going to charge people $30 to take an exercise class for 10 weeks and then take their money that they've given to the town and put it towards something that's not really from them, their money.
I just
An example would be, let's say we did an April vacation type program, sports, for the lack of a word, we did a sports camp and we charged for that. That money would probably go into the revolving fund, and the expenses to run that week would come out of the revolving fund because it's not a budgeted item. That week's camp, if we had one, is not budgeted. That adult fitness class that we run, or any adult fitness classes that we run, are not budgeted by the town. So it is dependent upon the fees to make it work.
right. Morgan?
This is just a curiosity question. So if somebody, do we still charge for, like, if I go use the tennis courts or if somebody uses the pickleball courts, and then do those funds go for net purchases or
Only in the summer.
maintenance?
No, we don't right now, no. There's nobody there. But there's no staff
Right, and I
there
get
that
that. So, but in the summertime, do we charge? I can't remember.
at Eldridge.
At Eldridge, okay. And so all of those funds collected there, you would then go use for nets and tennis
Yep.
balls and things like that. Okay.
Yep.
So I guess, I may have to go rewatch some meetings. I think last year, I know we ran into what was coming out of the revolving fund and what was coming out of the budget, and basketball, I would think, would be covered in the budget. So if you're collecting fees from kids who are playing basketball, they're still getting the t-shirt that they always get, and it's the same schedule. So I'm not seeing where we need to pull from the revolving fund from that. Or, basketball didn't happen this year, so that's it. But soccer, people paid $15 for soccer, but it's budgeted by the town. It takes me, I'll figure this out midday on Sunday after processing it for a couple of days, but I'm just, the different, that revolving fund continues to keep me.
So, Tracy, you're frozen. I don't think we ever really answered that question last year. I know that it was a question that Ann had also, where the budget does account for the refs for soccer and basketball and softball and the t-shirts. So you would think that those expenses are coming out of the budget and not the revolving fund. but it wasn't that way.
And I'll just throw my 3 cents in here because, I'm not running the books for the town and I'm not doing this budget, but boy, it sure sounds like this is way more complicated than it needs to be.
It should be simple because it's a small budget. There isn't an awful lot to it, really. I mean, there aren't a lot of items. It's really pretty straightforward. But I know that when we spoke with Kathy, she was more of the, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It doesn't matter which fund it comes out of. These are the expenses. And once one is exhausted, then we go to the other. That was kind of the answer that we got, because we were wondering how it was that they ran out of money. They had exhausted the revolving fund by August of 2019. There was nothing left. And that was because they covered the salaries for the extra hour out of the revolving fund. At least that's how it was explained to us then. I could be very wrong. I'm not an accountant by any means.
Sharon, just to answer that and to kind of help, it was a.
Carol, you're muted.
I am?
Sorry, Carol was trying to say something too, but Alan, why don't you start and then we'll go to Carol.
All right, sounds good. That 2019 summer, the town was caught with its hands tied in that we had a budget prepared and were basically, I don't know all the ins and outs of how it works, but we had a budget prepared to be approved at town meeting. And Tom Daly Tom Daly had a conversation with Tracy, and the conversation with Tracy was that Tom was asking for, because we were going for the revolving fund, which we did not have. We did not have a revolving fund, so we were charging absolutely nothing for these programs. And I had been an advocate for that. And one of the things that was discussed was, well, we will support, we will garner support for your quote, for your revolving fund idea if you will add an hour to the summer rec program. So instead of 9 to noon, it was 8 to noon. And we agreed to that. And once we agreed to that, we realized we don't have the money for that because the budget was approved at town meeting. The revolving fund was approved at town meeting, but the budget that was approved at town meeting was for a 9 a.m. to 12 noon program. And we had an kind of a agreement with some people that we would increase with that committee, that group, no committee, but that group of people would, in essence, a group of parents, if you will, support the revolving fund if the rec department extended rec an hour per day, which we agreed to do. It got passed. We got the revolving fund. We gave them the extra hour, but because the budget was also passed, we didn't have the money to pay that hour. So that hour per roughly 16 people was paid for out of the revolving fund. That was never the plan. It's not the plan to pay staff out of revolving funds. Staff, different from let's say a yoga instructor who's teaching in January. But the staff, the people who are actually employed by the rec department, by the town, are to be paid, should be paid out of the non-union account, which is an employee account. That is the process in 2020 and the process moving forward. But where everybody got caught with a quick scenario that happened in summer of 2019, and in essence, if you will, I got what I wanted. I wanted a revolving fund. So-called quote parents got what they wanted. They got that extra hour of recreation. Moving forward, that's never been the plan to take salaries out of the revolving fund.
Carol, did you still have a question or comment?
Thank you. I- I- So I wasn't part of the group when all this was happening, or I was given copies of the letter after. So I have no perspective at all to be helpful. But I'm sitting here thinking about the enterprise funds that we adopted for other parts of the town budget and wondering if in the future would rec ever be considered for that? I mean, it seems similar to me to the natural resources and the beach budgets and the town water area that has, that has its own, because it has fees and it has expenses, and it's like a mini business. So it's called an enterprise fund. And there's no reason rec couldn't be considered that as well, unless it's too small and there's a cutoff. I just don't know how those things are decided. But I toss it.
I don't know that I'm gonna have a great answer, but I will tell you that the enterprise funds are designed to be user fees, so that services that are provided by the town over a period of time will become covered by people who are actually using the service. The rec program, I don't think was intended to be a user fee, based service. I think there was going to be the idea was going to be have some marriage of user fees plus general tax revenue. And I think there was clearly a desire that the town be supportive of the rec program, and that the idea was to make a rec program that was really for the whole town. And so there wouldn't be the need for as much of a need for user fees. It's not like going to the transfer station where it's clearly clearly who uses it and who doesn't. But it would be nice to have a rec program that was just sort of out there for everybody.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Morgan? And thank you, Kyle. My power flickered for about just long enough to throw everything off course.
I agree with Matt, and I just want, because I think a big part of our summer rec program for families is that we do provide childcare, and we have to, and that's, as we've discovered during COVID, such an essential part of keeping our town running and keeping working families in place. And to charge a fee, like an enterprise fee for that, just, I don't think quite works. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we need to support those families who need that care from rec, at least in the summertime.
I would agree with that.
Other budget questions?
Tracy, can I just add in something, kind of it's probably the wrong thing to say, but I think it's needed to be said. And Morgan, no offense, recreation does not provide childcare. We provide recreational services. So all of our activities are structured versus just drop your kid off and we'll make sure he doesn't get into mischief.
I will say that your program paired with the OSAP program, Serena's program, and it hasn't been run that way because of COVID, provides an essential service for our community, because you provide the morning care, and that you may not like that it's called that, but you are caring for children that need care. And then Serena picks them up right at lunchtime and provides the care till 5:30. So we are an essential service, and we're stringing two programs together, but we are essential to those families.
I would agree that we're essential to those families.
Yeah.
I would totally agree.
Sharon?
Unmute there. One question, because I'm just trying to, understand these numbers. Alan, do you have any insight into why the hours for the summer playground instructors was reduced to 105 hours? That works out to be 3.5 hours a day for 6 weeks.
I do not. I
Okay.
do not know. I mean, I know that we submit the budgets and then it goes up the ladder.
Okay. I
So
can see the swim Shin is a lot more. It's 165 hours.
Right.
But for whatever the playground program is only 105. So, and I know a lot of people utilize that. And just in terms of the swim instruction, I know that there's a lot of people who are non-Orleans people who benefit from that program. So just curious about the difference there.
I do not know, however, on Monday, I can certainly review it with Tom.
Okay.
But Tracy, I think this is the kind of thing that if you
Right.
can get that down in writing, that your expectation was that it would be 135 hours and it's actually 105.
Right.
Those are the kind of disconnects that need to be straightened out.
Right. Other questions about the budget or Joan?
Tracy, I'm assuming maybe just you and one other person go to the meeting on Wednesday? Sharon or whoever you want to take with you?
Anne had offered to go. I think Sharon has been a really clear, strong voice for the budget, so I would encourage Sharon to join us. We'll both miss, I think that's high school orientation night, so we can, Morgan and Brandon can fill us in at a later date on what we miss. But I think it would be worth, having one more person at least. If that sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll, I think I'd like to move on from budget then to talk about the vision, one-year vision idea that Meth had mentioned.
And excuse me, Tracy, but I'm gonna
Yes.
drop off here, but the two are connected, right? I mean, the
Right.
one-year vision and the budget.
Yes,
are-
I just mean, not the sort of nitty-gritty budget. We can set those papers aside maybe. Okay, thank you, Meth.
Yeah, good night all.
See you, Matt.
Tracy, I'm going to be leaving as well.
Okay, Alan, thank you very much.
Okay,
See you, Alan.
Yeah, bye-bye.
bye.
Meth, called this afternoon to talk about a vision statement, and I am apparently on a, let's get out of here mode of, this is the new stage of the pandemic for me, is I just can't wait to think about spring and vaccines and things to do. So I did start drafting some ideas for vision statement. So let me just run through the gist of what I have, and then I would really appreciate input. Again, this doesn't have to, be, this doesn't have to cover everything in its short term. But what I basically talked about was, that we hope that the Rec Advisory Committee would like to see the department bring a diverse range of recreation programming to Orleans residents. We strongly encourage the Orleans Rec Department and the town to take special care to make sure that residents, maybe myself especially, coming out of a long, lonely year, have an abundance of opportunities to get outside and be together. I talk about the Harwich Community Center and the Orleans Citizens Forum, and I said, we challenge the rec department to make use of the current facilities and resources to bring a wider range of programming to Orleans residents. The school gyms might not match a community center gym, but can we do more with them? Are there spaces in town that could be used for school arts and crafts classes, a popular wish on our 2019 survey? What sorts of community can we create with our current facilities and spaces? And then I go on to talk about families, as was true when RAC began its work in 2018. Orleans families, especially those with older elementary and middle school students, must be a focus of efforts in the coming year. After school evening and weekend programming for all interests should be prioritized. Nauset Schools and Together We Can should be partners. Our survey found families want full-day summer recreation. While we appreciate the challenge to this shift, we encourage Orleans Recreation to seek out ways it can be part of the answer for working families, whether by adding afternoon programming or expanding the schedule of the current summer programming. And then finally, I said that for inspiration, we can look to our neighbors. Eastham Rec provided arts and crafts bags to families for February vacation and is running a weekly kids cooking class over Zoom. Brewster Recreation starts soccer clinics in April and ran a successful outdoor basketball program earlier this winter. Wellfleet Rec has guided family hikes and Zoom painting lessons. These ideas will work not only during the pandemic, but beyond. So I would like to hear input from my perspective. The best thing that that could come out of 2021 is just drawing on all our resources and making up for as much of what people missed out on in 2020 as we can. And I do think, I think Alan has done a really good job. The soccer clinics were great, but let's keep going and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other good things are going on in neighboring towns that are kind of low cost and low key. And I'd like to see us talking more to neighboring towns and sharing good ideas. Because I think it wouldn't necessarily take a lot more funding to just ramp up what we're able to do. So I would love input. Joan?
I think it's great. I would add a couple of things that we could plan, not so short term. So there's things on the horizon. So, maybe there's short term things, but also a full year of activity that, families could plan for. The other thing would be that we should really plan for all the things we have in place coming from CPC funds now. So the kayak racks, the hiking trails, like get people excited by that. The pickleball have something already ready to have teams in place. And I would love it to be just not families with young kids, but how do we merge the intergenerational people here between old and young that can give us more, when Alan was saying he wanted someone for the Easter egg hunt, I thought, hey, let's contact the senior center. There's so many seniors that want to get involved. So how do we bridge that? And then in terms of what you said, the partners, we should put in not just other towns, but the bike committee, the police department, anyone that has shown interest in us to leverage their resources. And, how do we get staffed right? How do we really get to the right staffing level? But otherwise, I think it was great. Those were my.
No, thank you. And I knew I was missing other age groups. So that was one of my bullet points, was that I needed to get in. So thank you. Morgan?
I love the idea of a calendar that looks, that Joan was saying, that projects forward for adults and, for almost everything that's going on. Like, so maybe every Friday there's a hike. We are going to have all this new signage, right? Maybe there's a hike every Friday for, maybe it's kids and seniors. I don't know, or maybe it's for, newcomers to Orleans. It's always new, whatever it is, but like something to plan with. How about that? I love that idea. I think that should be a long-term goal for us, to have our calendar on our website really vibrant and exciting and interesting with lots to do.
Yes, and I think that's come up in the past, even on our committee, wanting to know what's 2 months down the road or 3 months down the road. So I agree that should be prioritized. And yes, you raised your hand on the Zoom too.
I was actually just going to say, Tracy, you had used the phrase, let's fill the calendar. And I think that concept is good. And the calendar, also, as Morgan says, in a way, we have asked for a year at a glance. And that as we get closer to a season, like now is close to spring, let's see that calendar, the details be filled in with all sorts of intergenerational, young kids, middle school, you name it.
Mhm.
All of it.
Yes, yes, thank you. I agree. Any other suggestions? Carol?
Yeah, just picking up on Morgan's good idea. I think the same thing could be true of the kayak trail we've talked about, which may happen despite racks not happening immediately. Because once there's a map that and a safety process for certifying people or somehow allowing whatever that Anne would get into later. You could have guided kayak trail every Saturday morning and every Sunday afternoon, and that could be intergenerational. And then to Joan's point, thinking about that calendar, I love, or when I had younger kids, I loved an annual repeating event that everybody looked forward to. So something like the Chambers Santa Stampede, right? Or the Halloween dressing up. If you could get it collaborating across all the chambers and not-for-profits and rec and COA and have it truly be town recreation, I think that'd be beautiful. I think that is a wonderful vision.
Good, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right. So I'm, with your permission, and maybe with a vote, I'll tidy this up and add changes, and then it has to be to John Kelly tomorrow by noon. But it's better, you know, it's good for my brain. And
that we give Tracy, I move that we charge Tracy with cleaning it up and presenting our vision, representing us as she proposes she's going to do.
okay, thank you, Anne. Do I have a
Second.
second? Any discussion? Okay, then we'll take a roll call. Anne,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Joan,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
and Brandon.
That's an aye.
Okay, terrific. All right, moving right along. CPC. Joan,
This
I
could
will
go,
say, anyone, I don't know when they'll post today's CPC meeting, but Carol presented and it was really excellent. So if you're looking for, you know, if you want sort of a warm-up course before next week, I would encourage you to watch Carol's presentation. It was really good. It was great.
It was great.
So she got us off on the right foot, but I did say, you know, she set the bar high. So now they've got very high, you know, they were very impressed by the first rec advisory committee proposal. We've got to keep their expectations high. I'm sure we will. So Joan, what do you have for us?
okay, so it's going to be quick. Everyone got the, you know, everyone on CPC gets the docket, but it's just too much to look at during the meeting. And Carol did a great job. 1 page or 4 pages of visuals. And you could send it directly to Sarah Eaton and to Myra, and they'll get it posted. And Sarah actually helped flip through the pages. You just tell her, okay, I'm ready for my document to go on. It's 10 minutes maximum. You don't really need more. It's to get the point across. And some people ask questions. Visuals are good. Morgan did her page already also. I would say, just say you need all the money for now, because actually Carol was told she wasn't asking for enough money. So although we might have installation work done by volunteers, since we're not guaranteed that, we don't want to say we definitely have volunteers. We can always turn the money back afterwards. If it's a 2-step project like engineering this year, just make sure you state that next year we're going to ask for more money for the full project or round 2 of what it is. And if there's any questions on the costs that came from the town, Tom Daly should be the one explaining the cost structure, and he's going to be at the meeting, and he already told Tracy that. So I put together a presentation scheduled so that some people can leave the meeting earlier. Because we have guests that attend, and I would say also, you know, I know you're coordinating with your co-presenters. So I was recommending that Tracy goes first and does a brief overview like she did this time of Orleans Outdoors, and then introduce some of the partners. Tom's coming, I think Nate's coming, Alan, Steve O'Grady, Ann Forrester. I don't know if others are coming. And then I would recommend Morgan going first. This way Ann could drop off because she's only there for Storybook Trails. And then Ann would go with Kayak Racks. And Ann, I don't know if you're having Nate and Stephen and Tom with you.
Actually, Nate and Dick Hilmer,
Oh, Dick Hilmer?
who's
Okay,
actually,
great.
yeah.
Okay, great. And then bike racks and picnic tables, I can present them, although I'm on the CPC, but if someone else would like to present them, so you have a chance of presenting, you could volunteer, or I could just jump off the CPC and present. That's allowed too. I can keep them. I'll keep them. Okay, that's easy. Okay, Kyle then would do pickleball courts. Kyle, Tom will be there. Do you need him in your presentation?
I'll touch base with him just to kind of help justify the number that came from Ron. That's probably about all I really need from him.
Okay, and then Tracy would then do the basketball courts.
Yeah, and I'll have Sharon with me, so Sharon will
Oh,
need
Tracy and Sharon, great. Okay,
to be added as a panelist.
okay. I will put down Dick and Sharon, and that's all that'll be missing from the panels. And then I think this is a good order unless someone thinks there's a better order.
Nope.
For the presentation. Okay,
Joan, can you just, I just emailed my slide to Tom Daly. When do you need slides in? Or when does-
I think it's the same as what you present. It's
48 hours?
48 hours in
Okay.
advance. So I was just saying, if everyone can get the slides to, by Monday, it's just good for
Yep.
Myra in case
Okay.
something happens Tuesday. If you just send your slide to Myra and Sarah and just tell them that it's for
Okay,
this presentation. Yes,
Okay.
Ann?
Technical question. Would just a photo, I don't know what you mean by slides, so,
I did one, I sent it in the document, Ann. It's pretty simple. I just did like 2 pictures of my picnic tables and some bullet points.
so
If you,
in a doc, oh, okay, drag a picture into the document
yeah,
and then send the document. Okay, I'll call you if I'm stuck.
and you don't, Carol didn't even have any words on hers, and hers was great because people were just looking at the visuals. So if you
I
just want to do.
Put them in a
visual-
Word doc. Oh, no,
Yeah.
I guess it was PowerPoint. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you a hand if you need it, Ann.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just did these. I sent mine to OCT, to Stephen. He found some errors. Of course, I added something up wrong. So now that's all fixed. So I have the final ones. And if you have a partner, just know who's speaking about what. So
Okay.
that's it.
good. Any questions? Okay. Alrighty. Moving on then. Thank you, Joan. The charge is another thing that we'll be talking about with the select board on Wednesday. So Ann and I worked on this over the last month, and I have so many papers now. I emailed you possible changes. Here we go. The changes, the revisions were italicized. We went into this looking to broaden the scope. I think in some ways we changed before the charge changed, or we broadened before the charge broadened. So now we're updating the charge to reflect where we are. So just wanting to get beyond, a narrow focus on programming and into something where we are thinking more about trails and basketball courts and kayaks and a little more branching out a little bit. And also, I do think one of the nicer parts of the project process for CPC was working with new partners. And so I wanted to make a place for that in the charge too, for more collaboration, because there are, so many other groups in town doing work that connects to recreation. So that we want to be able to work together. And then we also, I think one of the more dramatic was removing the 5-year plan, and thinking more about just getting more regular information about who's signing up for programs, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, where it's going, that sort of information and metrics would be helpful to us as a committee, as we advise, the department and the select board about where we think we should be going, that we want more access to metrics. And I used, there's a lot of opportunities. That was the only word that I could think of that I thought pulled in both programming and walking on a trail at Kent's Point with new signage. So I'm open to suggestions. This is my first go at a charge. Joan.
I think it's more a question. When are these due? Are they due next week? The charge?
So we were going to talk about it with the select board next week.
Okay, I was just wondering whether or not.
But I think it's the beginning of the discussion, not the end of it.
No, that's okay. I was just wondering if we could contact the woman that runs the senior center, because she presented at a meeting I was at recently about all the programs that they run, and whether or not she could pull metrics quickly. Because I do think it'd be good to know that one service that we have in town is pulling metrics of how many people are taking courses and what the dollars are. And we would want sort of the same opportunity in rec.
Okay.
Just because I think everything else in here is great. But I probably would also put in here about the charge, is that our charge is to get developed a full year calendar plan.
Yep.
That is accessible, that has events on it that can be counted on, like, activities, events for the whole community. And that should be one of our, in here somehow. With maybe it's just under communication, Tracy.
Yep.
That would be my only other part.
Yep. Thank you. It occurs to me, I probably have to get this to John Kelly by tomorrow at noon too, but I can reach out to Judy Wilson, and if we have that knowledge in our back pocket that there is another group in town that is pulling metrics regularly, then that strengthens our case, and if they're not, we move ahead. Anne?
One of the well, first of all, the concept is that the select board approves the charge, and we all agree we've outlived our previous charge. It may be worth revisiting our timing. That next week may not be the day to ask them to look at our new charge. Because we can bring it to any select board meeting when we're ready. I'm just raising the possibility that that meeting may, and when we finish today's meeting, may feel like we want to defer.
I think we'll have a lot to say and to talk about even without the charge.
Right.
Yeah, and that would certainly give us more time to reach out to COA and even to neighboring rec departments and see what their system is for pulling metrics. So Yeah, so I can see the wisdom in that shift. Sharon?
I just have a question about the calendar. I'm a little unclear there. I agree fully that we need to have, we've talked about this for a long time and having that whole idea of a year ahead. But as far as including it as our charge, I feel like that's something we have no control over, that it's Alan's
Right.
thing to provide that structure and what's getting plugged into that calendar. Even at the most basic level, you used to be able to log on to the regular Town Orleans website and go to the rec page, and there was an outline there of the most basic things that were offered throughout the year. So you always knew in the fall there was soccer, and in the winter there was basketball, and that there was an Easter egg hunt and all of those things. And those were just always there, pre-populated. Right now, if I log on to my website, there's nothing there at all. There's no description of what we provide. I mean, yes, you can see that there's a summer handbook, but there's no description of if somebody just was like, oh, new to the town and I just moved here, I would have no clue of what those things are that we offer, even in the most basic structure. So I'm just wondering, is that our charge to say that? Because we aren't advising Alan, we're advising the select board. So I'm just confused.
Joan and then Anne.
I think though, someone that when I moved here, you found rec in 10 different places. I would love a calendar that we lead, but that other people could help populate. So the senior center, the library. So it's like a town calendar. And yes, Alan's responsible for rec, but as a rec advisory, we should really be looking at this holistically for what's really being offered in the town. And I would love that. And it's beyond our current scope just with Alan, but it would be, to your point, Sharon, you go there now, you can't find anything. So wouldn't it be great if on someplace you could find so much about what's going on in the town? And
Yep, Anne.
I think Sharon brings up an important point. Our charge is not to do the work, which is why I think taking out the CROS, developing a 5-year plan is appropriate, because that's something the town needs to get funded, and it's not our job to do it. And that's why it's gone. It's not our job to populate the calendar with recreation activities, but it is a commitment that we as a committee want to, our definition of a healthy town recreation program would have.
Right.
So having the wish to have a interactive calendar that expressed community-wide activity, that people could see what's coming and that sort of thing. But it's not something we're going to make. It's what we are going to support.
So if we said something along the lines of the committee will support the development of a calendar with input from different, organizations in town, showing, with a year at a glance look at programs and activities. Support the development of doesn't mean we're filling in the squares. It means that we're supporting someone else filling in the squares, and that we're going to keep, that we'll prioritize its completion. Does that language sound?
And the committee will support a recreation department that communicates to the town its plans for the year and incorporates all other community activities in collaborating and communicating in the form of a calendar and other fashions or something.
I might need you to email that to me, Anne.
Or we
Okay.
envision, maybe we envision and support the development of such a thing.
Carol's very good at word crafting.
Yes. Why don't I make another draft of this that we can look at the next meeting? And then we could approve it as a, or we could discuss it as a committee, and then talk about bringing it to the select board. Do we need to vote on waiting? Okay, I'll take, I'm saying we don't have to vote on it. I'm moving on, unless there's anything else. Okay. The next thing is a warrant article suggestion. So this came up over the past few weeks. And Anne, I'm going to turn it to you just to sort of lay the groundwork and get everyone on the same page.
Okay.
Thank you.
I feel like it's the moment where I should say, everybody stand up, stretch, take a deep breath, have a snack, because this is important. I will introduce it this way. Andrea Reed came to me wanting very much to talk about recreation and a thought she had. So let me develop the thought, because it dovetails nicely with what we're talking about in all our, the thread in all our discussions is our desire to grow rec, have it holistic, be town-wide, be an important part of the budget, and how people think about what recreation in Orleans is. And Andrea actually explained that, and it made sense. Recreation has traditionally over the years in towns been kind of an orphan department just for the kids, that a director is stuck somewhere in the organizational lineup. And that is the old school, what recreation has been. What we are envisioning is a town-wide, coordinated, inclusive, robust, to overuse a word, program that uses the entire environment and resources, both personal, human resources as well as environmental, and is integrated into Council on Aging, the schools, the Cultural Council, all the other committees that are committed to the resources in town. And we all long for a home for recreation and understand that a community center is part of what we envision for the future. So her recommendation is this, that we propose a completely new position, a professional who is a community coordinator, recreation specialist, who sits at the head of this department, but also is on equal footing with Tom Daly or Nate, is a town staff person who is there to do the coordination, do the communicating with the schools, to facilitate outreach, be the liaison in every single committee that is addressing potential recreation, be it the open space or the bike and pathways, cultural committee, who is at the table working with planners for a future community center because it takes understanding the needs of the library, the Council on Aging, the daycare centers, the school needs. Before that community center takes shape, what we, in a way, agree we have now is a community center without walls. What we're trying to do is link all the resources into a community center by collaborating with the schools and the surrounding towns and the waterways, you name it. And having a professional in that position. Now, this person would oversee and supervise the program specialists who would remain. There would still be a program specialist, but this person would oversee and direct and evaluate and guide the program specialist to achieve all the goals. This person might, well, for instance, those things that came up as being townwide needs, as Joan said, when we got into the Safe Child discussion, it really is a townwide need, and someone like a community coordinator really would be tasked with developing a professional policy that was acceptable townwide. It's not for us to figure out, it's just for us to know it's needed. There may well be a need for a volunteer coordinator because the recreation program could be hugely more extensive if there was someone coordinating very willing volunteers and allowing us to do those Saturday morning kayak trips and you name it. So it's a big idea that parallels our bold thinking about where we want to go.
Morgan?
I think it's a fabulous idea. I like having the person in place that would sort of be like that wonderful woman we met at the forum from Harwich. She was so dynamic and she coordinated all those things in the community center, but we don't have the center yet, but you're sort of putting somebody in place before that comes to fruition and then can guide us to that maybe if that does come in place. I think it's a fabulous idea and I would be happy to support it.
Joan?
All right, so I have some concerns that there's not enough meat on the bones for the job yet because we need so much help in this town in other ways, like Nate needs some help and Tom and other people, that to have a job that is hopeful of getting community center is tough right now. I would love to see if we can structure it and that has a way that we can really define what the role is in a more, not just a communication liaison, but what are the real tactical aspects of the job? Because otherwise to get something funded like that at a level where we know other people have had cuts this past year because of COVID, I think is tough. And I totally believe in it, but I just want to make sure it's structured in a way that it's not looking like, well, it's just going to be hopeful for the community center. And I think about the woman from Harwich who also runs their senior programs. And, you know, maybe we should talk to Judy at the Council on Aging first to find out what she's doing. And is it a role that can report into her? Because she's really great also, Judy from Council on Aging. So that's how I would look at it. And I love this group and I do think rec has to be brought forward, but I'm anxious about adding a level that's high without really understanding the day-to-day tactical other than communicate.
Morgan?
I think that when you sort of dive deep into other rec departments and the staffs that they have, That would be a place to start. I think, we're so limited with only one staff member, and having somebody in this role that Anne described, I think could take on a lot of those sort of job descriptions if we were to look to our neighboring towns a little bit, plus some of the other things that Anne named in her description. But like I think of Eastham, who I see all the time in my building. They push into the school constantly. They have 3 people, and their director primarily is a communications director.
Oh, great.
And probably the person that collects data and actually has metrics. I'm guessing she does. But their roles are, they've got 3 full-time staff members, and I think there's plenty to do. And there could be if we were to write, and it's probably not our job, but if the town were to write a job description, I think they could look to neighboring towns.
Great. That's a great point, Morgan.
I think,
Anne?
sorry, Joan's point is to be more concrete and to kind of do the work of writing the job descriptions so they know they don't have to think of what it is that is needed to collect metrics. I think the other is grant writing. There is so much available for all of these activities that is available in grants, that if someone formally, their job was to do grant writing for recreation activities for Orleans, it technically could pay for the position if it were done well. But having other ideas are looking at job descriptions that are above and beyond the programming that the program. So the idea would be that the program specialists would really be the boots on the ground, would be there at every activity that was happening, the soccer and the you name it. And this person obviously would come and go from those, but wouldn't be expected to be a presence when the programs were ongoing.
Other thoughts or questions? So this is something that the warrant articles have to be in by March 11th, is my understanding, which will be here tomorrow at the rate time is going somehow. So this is time sensitive. Is this something that our committee would prepare, or that Andrea would prepare, or that DPW would prepare? Do you know?
We would.
Okay, that's fine.
I think we need to think seriously. Do we do this? If we do, we have to do the full court press right away.
Morgan?
Feels a little fast, but
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea, and I like that we just started to talk about it, but I don't know, is that an unrealistic timeframe?
It's bold and fast, and to be honest, it solves some problems.
I think that the conversation is worth having with the select board, especially insofar as it does, speak to goals that the charge revisions, which we're not going to talk about with them yet, speak to, that our budget questions speak to. All of these things, we're not sort of scattered. It's the same thing over and over again, is that, sort of a broad reaching, robust, dynamic something or other, not, maybe not quite a rec department, entity in town that we see a need for, that would bring groups together, and provide opportunities. My go-to word for things to do. So I don't think it's out of left field with what we're already doing. But the pace is a swift one. I saw hands. Carol?
Yeah, and maybe Kyle had his hand up too. Is there a next logical step on the community center that our energy should be put into, or is this actually the next logical step for a community center? I don't know the answer.
Kyle? Do you-
Well, Ann, you had some input.
I think it could be a way to channel our energy because such a person's charge would be to translate our community without walls into a center, and be the voice. The other thing, we've spent some time, who are we advising? If we had somebody committed and professional and understood this, growing the department and becoming moving away from a department to our entity as yet unnamed, then we know who we're advising. We're working in tandem with somebody who has a seat at every table. And our voices we reflect the community and speak to someone who can help us make things happen. So in answer to the question, I think this is conceivably could help. And Andrea is very supportive, obviously, because she came up with the thought. I think other people on the select board are as well, although it is a tough season to, it's always going to be a tough season to ask for something new.
So if I could just maybe add, hopefully just 2 cents, and at the risk of taking maybe a controversial stance, the idea sounds to me like it's primarily voicing a reason for why we need more full-time staff on the rec department. But 2, I think it's kind of voicing a frustration that we don't have buy-in from the department itself, or an enthusiasm to the level that we would like to see in growing the program. Somebody who's doing 110, 125% of the job, as opposed to, I'm going to do my 35 hours and I'm going to check out. I think just a thought, and if I'm off base, I'm off base, but I'm curious as if the committee has any interest in voicing some of those concerns and doing some of the legwork and looking at the background of other rec departments to kind of express to the Board of Select that this is our frustration, this is our concerns, this is what we're advocating for, and this is why we're advocating for. And, I feel that there's a lot of frustration with Alan and maybe thoughts that he could be doing more to promote rec. And if that's the thought process, I think that's a lot of what this warrant article could attempt to accomplish, is get somebody in who is going to want to be at all these different committee meetings, who's going to want to coordinate and be in constant communication with the Council on Aging, the school system, the various nonprofits in the community. I think we could have a person in the current job doing all of those things. And if that's something that we want to take that, I guess, controversial stance on it, I would encourage the committee members to kind of voice their opinions. I know it's really hard to say, hey, you hired this guy and we're not really happy with what he's doing. This is what we would like to see more of, and why it works in other towns. But, I think that's the kind of the constant fight we have is with this committee, is with Alan on these types of things. And, maybe we don't get this warrant article together in time, but maybe we, put together, part of that vision statement, part of just a message to the Board of Select of where our frustrations really are and what we would like to see, and how we're going to accomplish that growing of this program and the justifying of the budget and yada, yada, but I see that warrant article kind of as that's what it's voicing, that kind of frustration. And I don't know if it's going to get us what we need. So.
And did your hand go up?
So first of all, Kyle, I can tell you that any kind of statement along the lines of what you made has been heard by every member of the select board, and they know it. So that's one. Two, I think that a healthy department does require at least 2 staff members, that one is inadequate. And 3, the whole concept is, I think, best considered removing the idea of a person who's currently in a position and thinking about the structure of the whole department. I think that the whole department does need 70 or 80 hours of full-time staff to become the department that we envision. That having a superior above the program specialist who actually evaluates, guides, and hires and fires is that it also would help our immediate needs is not the purpose of the position per se, that the position is needed to be for us to grow into the concept that we have. That one person, even somebody who is able to collaborate with the schools and reach out to other towns and contact the police department enthusiastic member and incorporate them readily and work with volunteers. Even if we had that one person wouldn't be enough.
I would agree, and I think that I was struck in preparing to talk about the community center, by my lack of confidence that we've necessarily exhausted all that we can do with what we have now. So I think it's an argument that I'm making, because I think that what we have now is not sufficient for our goals, but could we do a little more with what we have? Like, I think we could, could we get into the gym a little more? I think so, connect some of the dots. So I think that for me, it's helpful to think about this role as, you know, sort of a roving community center, but someone who takes the parts that we have and helps us start to fulfill some of those community center goals, like bringing together different generations and helping families with childcare before bricks and mortar, which we know is a long time away. And I think I would hope that the role could become something, you know, so important to people in town that the community center becomes sort of a no-brainer. That of course we need, you know, we're getting such good stuff out of this role and seeing someone bring different groups together, that of course we should give it a home. So I think the two can work well together. And I agree, I think that the goals that we have for the department aren't going to be met by one person. So I think that I'm inclined to think that even though this would be speedy, that it would be worth a push to have the conversation. And, you know, if we get a chilly reception from the select board, we meet again in a couple of weeks and start to branch out and talk to other people and, you know, different towns and see what we need to do. But I don't think it can hurt to start the conversation.
You bring it up next week, Tracy?
Yes, I think we would bring it up next week in order to be ready to go on the 11th. I've never been involved in a warrant article before, so I'm not clear on the steps between now and then. But I would think we would have to get the ball rolling and just get a sense of the response, you know, get a sense of whether, you know, if we can make the case to the select board, that gives us some sort of indication of whether we can make the case to the broader public when it comes time for a town meeting. But I'm open to suggestions and input as always. Thoughts? It's almost 8 o'clock.
I think you want to do it right, and that's my concern about rushing it. And, you know, maybe Morgan has the insight that if it's running in Eastham this way, we get the job descriptions from Eastham as a starting point, because at least that'll give us, here's how it's running in another town when you go to the select board, and not have a job written already, but sort of look at that structure or a different town structure to say, we want to emulate one of these towns. What do you think? Because maybe they'll shake their head to something like that more so than putting a lot of work into something beforehand. I don't know, just an idea. Because I do think we need their buy-in to go forward.
Carol, was Carol her name that spoke?
Carolyn Carey, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she might be somebody to start, you know, like if you were starting at a smaller scale, you know, what kinds of things how did you start? And what roles did you really define what those early roles were? I don't know, that's just a thought.
Yes, Carol?
Yeah, it seems to me it's a parallel discussion with the charter people maybe, because it's a structural change and it's kind of going at the position that would be over a restructured total town rec role rather than, and which comes first, the chicken or the egg? You could go to the charter people and say, you know, we've been looking at this and living with it, and we really think we're missing the boat by having the senior center separate from rec, which is under DPW, which, you know, and here's a chart of what we think would work. And then there'd be this new position that was the glue that held it all together, plus reached out to the community. So it's at least a parallel discussion, if not a different pathway to the same end, maybe.
Would the charter committee then be able to bring it to town meeting? Or,
Rick just sent me, I don't know, my husband who's probably listening to this downstairs, just sent me how to get a petition through, because I guess he's working on something also. So I just sent it to you, Tracy.
Yeah, sorry, I had a screaming baby in my ear. The article for the community center, well, you're going to want to alert the administrator's office because it's going to affect the budget because you're looking to add salary. And then you're going to also want them to send it through to town council to make sure that how it's written is going to get done what you're looking to get done. And then they'll also be able to give you clarification on what percentage of the vote that you need to get it passed. So, I mean, those were the two steps that we went through with the community center article. It's like 10 signatures from citizens to get it actually onto town meeting. And they have like a little form that we passed around with the previous warrant. So it's really, I think the bigger push that you'd have to do is get the wording and the costs down. I don't know, you know, those are the two big pieces, I think.
You know, I think I would like to ask Andrea to sponsor the warrant. And we'll tell her we'll do whatever will help her generate some ideas of a job description. But if she's really gung-ho, we'll march around, get signatures or whatever's needed, but can she sponsor it? How about that?
that sounds really good. Tom Daly speculated something along the lines of that the select board has a little more flexibility with warrant article dates. I don't know if that has to be something that comes from the entire select board or if she would, as a board member, have a little more flexibility beyond that March 11th date. But I think a little delegation could go a long way. Okay. And do you have a sense of what should be happening between now and next Wednesday, whether it's another check-in with Andrea Reed or, I'm happy to reach out to Eastham, but I'm wondering if Andrea is the first person to talk to.
I'll check back in with her if that's the sense of the committee, and ask her if she would sponsor the warrant and give her a little flavor of our discussion. I think tonight it would be helpful if I told her a vote of support for her warrant was given and a vote of, doing the physical work that she needed, that the warrant would need, is something we'd be willing to do.
Okay. Do I have a motion then to support a warrant to bring in, what we'll loosely refer to, I don't know how loosely we can do and vote on it, what we'll refer to as a community coordinator for the town of Orleans, who, to do all the, all right, scratch that. I'm going to start it over. A motion to support a warrant to add a community coordinator position to the town of Orleans. With details TBD, but to get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote then. Anne?
Aye.
Sharon?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Carol? I don't need Carol yet. Kyle, sorry.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, and Brandon?
Also abstain.
You
Okay,
know what? I'm going to abstain. I'm changing my vote.
okay,
Sorry.
so that gets us 3 in favor, 3 abstentions.
So it sounds like we need to have more discussion,
Yes,
or table the plan. If the people abstaining wanted to speak up and say what.
I mean, I just don't know what we're voting on. It doesn't seem very clear, one, what we're voting on. I mean, I'm also in support of making rec more robust and more staff and all of that, but and the idea of a community coordinator sounds, I think, good maybe in theory, but I don't really even know, what we're looking for. If you want to make if you want to move to inform Andrea of our conversation tonight about her suggested warrant article and to tell her that we encourage her to put something forward for the next town meeting, I would probably vote for that. I get her idea, but I don't know that I'm really on board with fully supporting a warrant article without actually seeing what the warrant article says.
okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Would you like to make a motion in that vein?
Sure,
Or-
I'll move.
And does that do Brandon and, I'm sorry, do Brandon and, or Joan want to add anything that would further
Just
clarify?
confused. I'm confused of what the job is. We talked a lot. We talked a lot of different parts, and that's why I changed it to abstain, because I got a little bit, and I'm not so sure now's the right time, as people are cutting budgets right now. And I would hate to put it forward, although it's the right thing to do when people have a budget cut coming in. Should we not take the time to do it correctly? So I'm just confused, and it's best for me not to go forward with it. But I would support what Kyle said, if it's written up and we can look at it, and Andrea's written it up, and then we could support her work, that's fine. But I just don't think we're ready as a committee to have it correctly done in time for March. That's my feeling.
Yep. So Kyle, would you repeat to
So
the best of your ability?
a motion that I could support, and I would move for the committee to relay to Andrea Reed our support of increasing rec department's focus in town, and that we welcome further discussions about her proposed warrant article. I think that kind of.
Mhm. Okay. A second. Okay, I'll second it. Any discussion? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Sharon,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Aye.
and Brandon,
That's an aye.
and Tracy Murphy, aye. Okay, so Anne, if you can relay that to Andrea. I think the only outstanding condition, or outstanding thing, and I know it's getting late, but just as far as Wednesday, the ball's in Andrea's court then for whether this comes up or not. And I think that the budget discussion, and we can still, talk about a broader scope for recreation. I think it can still be an effective message. And if we have the opportunity to hear more about possible, additions to personnel, then, then we do, then we hear and we can see what next steps might be. But even without that, I think we have a lot to bring. We have a lot to bring that will voice that will say what we need to say. So I'm comfortable leaving that until the future. Other comments or, okay. Quickly and on a upbeat note, the Orleans Citizens Forum, I did, I think I need more Carolyn Carey in my life, for one thing. She is sort of one of those, whatever she, whatever she does, I think would be exciting to be a part of. So it's neat. I'm always taken with someone who appears to have found the just right place for them in the, someone who's doing exactly what they need to be doing, where they should be. I just thought she was great. And I thought that thank you to the committee members who submitted questions, because I thought we covered a good amount of area in terms of potential concerns from voters. So other thoughts or responses? Everyone's tired, I guess.
I think it's great. Thanks for participating, everybody who did.
I think it was great. You guys got a lot of people. More than other Zoom meetings I've been to recently that were public, and I think it started a good conversation. I think it's going to be good to keep it going forward, the conversation. So,
Anne?
I think this hour isn't going to give that forum just due, because it was superb. And I think the concept of next steps maybe can be on our future agenda, jumping off from what we learned from the forum. There were some very good concepts that are worth pursuing, including the campus idea and the staged rollout and the ideas of planning. It was just really exciting, I thought. And I would favor our giving our fresher minds a chance to really dive into what it taught us.
great.
Okay. Future agenda items. Joan, did you want to say anything about COA?
I would love to have Judy come to our next meeting and talk about what she's doing with COA and the program she's running and the results she's getting, if that could be possible.
Anything else? Okay. So we'll see everyone a week from today at CPC, and some people at Select Board, so a busy few weeks. But thank you all again for a long but productive meeting, and all your hard work. I think it's it's the energy as we sort of find our way has remained positive, and I'm grateful for that. And I will look forward to next week and seeing what gets accomplished next week. All right. So I'll motion to adjourn. I really got to go to bed, I guess. Joan,
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, terrific. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.